Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the webinar. We have 4 fabulous speakers for you this afternoon, this evening, wherever you happen to be. And I will be introducing each of them very shortly. So before I do that, let me just talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing. So we do want your participation. We want everyone to get involved in the discussion. We're talking about a very, very important topic, to tier or not to tier, and why. And if you look at the bottom of your screen, there are 2 ways you can ask a question. You can either go in and ask a question via chat, or you can raise your hand and basically you can ask a question via the microphone. So type the question into the chat or click on the raise hand box and we will pick up on your contributions, which we're really looking forward to, and add those into the discussion. So without further ado, I am going to introduce our speakers to you. And our first speaker is Andy Arnold. He is the CRO of Ansira. Big congratulations to Andy. He's just been promoted to CRO, so many congrats. And as Chief Revenue Officer, Andy plays a pivotal role in Ansira's growth and client success, and he leads their go-to-market and channel teams. He spent more than 20 years helping clients identify, engage, and retain customers. His experience stretches not just across the technology industry, but he's also involved in automotive, consumer packaged goods, retail, and hospitality. And when he's not doing that, Andy is an avid traveler who also loves spending time with his nieces and nephews, and he's a big skier and plays the occasional tennis game. So, Andy, tell us a little bit about Ansira.
Thank you, Rod. Nice to be with you all. You know, Ansira empowers companies operating in a distributed ecosystem to improve performance by realizing a connected marketplace. We are a fully end-to-end organization that helps with program design, ecosystem enablement, and in-market activation with best-in-class tech with global support to ensure a frictionless partner experience. Great to be with you all today.
Fabulous. Thank you very much, Andy. And our second panelist is Caday, and she's the Client Delivery Director with the Spur Group. And she leads a team of 20 consultants and managers committed to driving revenue acceleration and outcomes for clients. She's got a wide-ranging partner and go-to-market strategy experience with multiple Fortune 500 firms and has a passion for helping organizations adapt to and thrive in a shifting industry landscape. And when not hunkered down, hiding from the rain, Kate enjoys hiking and running. So I guess you're hunkered down in Seattle at the moment, Kate, but tell us a little bit about Spur.
Sure am. Thank you, Rod. The Spur Group is a go-to-market focused consulting firm that's based in the Seattle area. With decades of experience and almost 3,000 engagements under our belt, we have a comprehensive approach to addressing business challenges, helping our clients build a sustainable competitive advantage. We're passionate about helping our clients gain actionable insights, grow revenue faster, improve partner return, create stronger connections, and fuel. Pleasure to be with you all today.
Fabulous. Thank you very much. And our third panelist is Ken Fox, and Ken is the CEO of Channel Mechanics. Ken's an accomplished leader with over 20 years experience in the channel. He's got a master's degree in software with an MBA. He's transformed Channel Mechanics from a startup into an award-winning SaaS provider that is truly disrupting channel program execution. He's passionate about enabling customers to get the most from their partners, and very much in his spare time, he provides a non-stop taxi service for his 4 children. So Ken, tell us a little bit about Channel Mechanics.
Thanks, Rod. Lovely to be here for the debate. So yeah, Channel Mechanics, we're a born in the cloud channel enablement company. We provide our customers a platform that they use to execute their various partner programs. So looking forward to the debate, Rod.
Fabulous. And last but by no means least, we have Laz Gonzalez, and Laz is the Chief Strategy Officer for Zift. And basically, he's keen on and has masses of experience in developing enterprise channel software. Prior to Zift, for 8 years, Laz led the channel research at Serious Decisions, now obviously Forrester. And aside from his passion for channels, Laz is also a percussionist and loves playing and dancing salsa. So Laz, tell us a little bit about Zift.
First, thank you, Rod. Thanks for having me here and joining all these great minds on the channel. I'm really excited to dig into this topic. It's something that our customers are asking about all the time, partner tiering and segmentation. At Zift, we've really merged the worlds of PRM and channel marketing and learning management into one platform. And it's being used by some of the world's largest channel programs out there, Cisco, Samsung, even CrowdStrike. Our mission is to provide, one common partner experience on one platform, visibility across the entire program, which we're going to talk about today, and the ability to manage your sales and marketing funnel, something that has been really hard for companies to do. So I'm super excited to join the crew here and get down to talking about tiering.
Fabulous. Now, as I said, we want everyone involved. So we thought what we'd do to start with is just to engage you in a little poll. So we are putting up the polling questions now. And so we are asking you, do you think that tiering is no longer relevant, has some relevance but needs to be based on more than the transaction value, or is essential to your business? So please answer the question now. We've got a lot of people coming in and answering, but we've still got about 30% of people basically to answer the question, now down to about 25%. So do pop your answer in. Give you another 15 seconds. Let's get those final answers in. We've got a lot of people on the webinar. Let's get as many of you as possible answering the question. So please put those answers in now. Closing the poll in 10 seconds. So final chance to pop your answers in. Okay, so Maddie, if you could end the poll and share the results. So we have 6% of us think that tiering is no longer relevant. 77% of us think it has some relevance but needs to be based on more than the transaction value. And 17% of us feel it is essential to our business. So picking up on that, let me start with you, Laz, if I may. Would you like to comment on those answers?
Well, I mean, what was going through my mind when I was looking at the responses was that you can't look at finish line results and build a channel program around it. So you can't look at transactions and see who won the race and say, well, that's how I'm going to establish my program. I think it has a lot to do with alignment to your business and your business goals. So you have to look at things like leading indicators. You have to look at things like enablement and training, and I'm sure my colleagues have a lot to talk about in those areas. And you also have to incent them. You have to incent partners. And so I agree with the results. It's not about finish line results. It's not just about the transaction. It's about everything that leads up to it and how do you control those behaviors.
Excellent. And Kate, do you want to come in briefly on that one?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of folks' response to that number two, that middle item there, really reflects what we're seeing in the industry, which is that partners' value isn't collapsing, it's actually expanding, right? And so partners are driving value, working with customers in such a myriad of ways that it's difficult to just use a one-size-fits-all tiering methodology like a volume plus enablement, equals how important my partner is to me anymore.
Mhm. Okay, now I'm going to switch gears. I think Nathan, by the way, who's popped in a really interesting comment, must be reading from my talk track, because my next question was basically, and I'll fire this at you, Ken. How would you define tiering?
Yeah, thanks, Rod. Yeah, so I think tiering is a mechanism to allow vendors differentiate their partner base. Um, you know, all partners are different. That's the reality. And I think 94% of the response to the poll showed, you know, people see it is relevant. And definitely the middle section, again, that's kind of what we see a lot of is people have moved away from the transactional. So it's not just about revenue and training anymore. Tiering has become very sophisticated because the channel ecosystem has grown rapidly. So it's now transactional, it's training, it's things like driving, you know, rewarding partners for driving things like customer adoption rates, renewals, and so on. There's many more, the list goes on. But it's how the key is, I suppose, how do you differentiate those partners? You must have some kind of a mechanism, and tiering is the most common mechanism to do that, because you do need to reward ultimately the partners that do the most for your business.
Mm-hmm. Andy, do you want to come in on that one?
Yeah, no, I agree with Ken's setup of, you know, what the traditional method is from a standpoint of creating tiers. But I think that what we're seeing in the marketplace is basing, you know, partners are people. So ultimately making it more individual or points based so that their journey may not be as rigid as 3 traditional tiers of a gold, silver, bronze, but more about their own journey to being effective, you know, growth engines for an organization. So I think that the traditional, you know, model of tiers needs to be more evolved, where folks are, you're looking at a partner on an individual level and their his or her journey.
Mm-hmm. So, Kate, are you seeing with your customers that it's become a lot more complex and sophisticated in terms of tiering, and how does that relate to the overall program?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've seen a lot of clients recently, or worked with a lot of clients recently who stood up a bunch of different distinct partner programs for different partner types as their partner ecosystem expanded, and potentially as they started to, for instance, introduce cloud offerings and alongside on-prem offerings, for instance, within their product portfolio. And that led to a kind of disjointed partner experience. And so now we're seeing with our clients a movement toward consolidation of a unified partner program. And we've seen this across clients of all different sizes, from smaller, more startup tech firms all the way to the largest players. But within that, then there's this challenge of, though I may have, you know, tracks within a unified program, in order to provide that unified partner experience, it takes the most thought to understand how to provide equivalency between tiers. And just a quick note on that, when it comes to tiers, we do see a lot that clients are still needing to use tiers for scale and visibility internally. It does provide its utilitarian function of providing scale.
Okay, and Laz, what are you seeing as far as tiering is concerned? What are the big trends that you're seeing with your customers?
Well, I think you know, Kate said it, and it's been echoed in some of the conversation already. It's about, you know, aligning their goals and influencing their behaviors, and whether it's a points-based system or it's a transactional approach. I think to answer the question, I think tiering is a way to segment partners to better align to a channel program's goals and to really influence their behavior. So, you know, partners want to know, and what I've heard, even in the discussions that we've had with your group, Rod, that, you know, partners want a roadmap. They don't want to fall off a cliff, and they want to be growing within your program. And so I think tiering gets you there. It kind of drives that journey. And I agree with the, you know, some of the questions that they're putting up here. Some of the folks, it's not a one size fits all, as Kate said. For ISVs, it's got to look different. You know, and some companies have to really think about what they can do to support tiering. I've seen suppliers, and you guys may have seen the same thing, kind of say, hey, before we jump into this, right, let's think about what our ability is to support this tiering model, because, you know, we don't have as many experts as we might think we have.
Mm-hmm. And Ken, coming to you, one of the things in the lead up to the webinar you mentioned was you're seeing customers moving from 3 to 5 partner definitions to as many as 12 to 15. How do you fit that into a tiering model, and how do you make that work? Because it sounds like we're moving from tiering to really trying to define the different kinds of partners and respond to their sometimes quite different needs.
Yeah, no, that's right, Rod, and it gets quite complex. It's a lot more complex than it used to be, the tiering program. So it often is a number of programs with an overarching program, because different partners have different needs. So if you think about your standard reseller versus your MSP versus your influencer referral type partner. So what used to be, 3 or 4 partner types is above 10 partner types. So now when a vendor defines their partner program, they've got to take all of those into account. And somebody else already alluded to, your traditional products, your on-premise versus your cloud offerings, and everybody is trying to migrate to those. So you're trying to, mash all of that together and come up with a program that serves all of those partner needs. So yeah, you will have different, we call them requirements of the program that each of those different partner types have. And they, again, those requirements of the program used to be 2 or 3 things. They're typically now between 6 and 10 different requirements. So if you think about that, 6 or 10 different requirements across multiple programs is a lot of combinations. And what you have to try and do then is, depending on the partner that you're engaging, or the vision or the view of the world that they get is only relevant to them. So that's making it easy for that partner to work with you. The trick is in there that when they log on, they should only see the program tiers that are relevant to them, with the thresholds that are relevant to them based on their requirements. Mm-hmm. So I know there's a lot there, Rod, but that's kind of how complex it's actually got over the past few years. And that's down to 2 things really: the transition to cloud and the spinning up of all of these different partner types. Vendors now have to deal with all of that ecosystem, if you like. And one last thing I'll add to that, Rod, is it's not just the partner view of the world that's important. It's really, really important that the internal vendor facing view, so for your account managers, that you really support those account managers in understanding your program, and they must have an easy way, depending on which partner they're looking at, to see how that partner is doing against their specific partner program rules. So you identify the guys that are doing well, who needs to be nurtured, who's a lost cause, and so on and so forth. But trying to help an account manager do a better job is really, really important, and serving their partners.
Okay. And last, picking up on what Ken said there, Ken talked about 6 to 10 requirements. It used to be all about training and principally revenue. What are your clients now adding to the program? What are those other requirements that are becoming important?
Yeah, I think we got to stick to the theme that Ken mentioned. It's internal and external. So the requirements go both ways, right? So you might say for a partner, as you're setting up, I don't know, a cloud program and setting up tiers within that program, you might say, well, the partner, we want certain business alignment. We want to make sure that, they're proficient at renewals, for example. We want them to have certain technical skills or a technology focus in their company. We'd like them to have industry skills. So let's say that we're aiming at government or something like that we want, our program to support them in reaching upper levels of those types of skills. But internally, there's also requirements, right? So if I'm a supplier and I'm setting up a program, such as I gave this example, I would want to make sure that I have the people to do the training, the content to deliver to those partners. I want to be able to have a real robust enablement program that aligns to the tier that I want to do. And we work with a customer that, literally picked up these 4 or 5 requirements. But then going again back to what Ken said, you're going to have to support these partners out in the field, and your CAMs and your PAMs, they're going to need to represent, the program itself, what the tiers mean, all of the things. So I don't think you can forget to enable your own people to be able to execute this, because that's where it'll fall on its face quickly.
Okay. And Kate, coming in on that, picking up on requirements, what are the other requirements that you're seeing your clients looking at? What are you looking at with them? Things beyond the transaction, beyond the training. A lot of it, I guess, is behavioral.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about behavioral elements, right? But the difficulty there is that it can be extremely difficult to operationalize this increased complexity. And it goes without saying, the more accurate and precise a company's database and reporting capability is, the more irrelevant tiers will end up becoming. But the reality is that a lot of times our aspirations for what we'd like to recognize partners for and goal partners for outstrip our ability to report on that in a scalable fashion. And so I think that is something to take into account. But in terms of things that we're seeing clients begin to report on, incremental ARR, net new customer logos, Ken mentioned a few as well, renewal rate, retention, churn metrics, things like that are some of the next generation metrics that folks are starting to add into the portfolio for tiering requirements or thresholds.
And another
Okay.
emerging one from a tiering requirement standpoint is your ability to co-market and really be committed to market on behalf of the OEM. And so, do you have a dedicated marketing team? Are you committed to co-marketing and really utilizing their content in a cohesive manner that really brings something new and fresh to the market to unlock the target market that you're after? So marketing is a big part of this now, I'm seeing.
Yeah, and
Fully agree.
you need to assess their digital readiness to get there, right?
Absolutely.
Right. And even the presence of a validated, say, or differentiated service offering, solution offering, that's another one as well.
So the requirements a lot on the partner, Broad. I see some of the questions here, like what are some of those business requirements? And we've mentioned a lot of them in terms of metrics and the ability to do co-marketing. The other things are, have you hired the right people? Have you completed the training paths that we've created for you? I mean, those are the blocking and tackling ones, but nevertheless, they're very important and they can't disregard.
Mm-hmm. Ken, you brought it up originally. Any key criteria we've missed that your clients are asking for?
You've probably covered a lot of them, but I just try and summarize the kind of stuff we see, Rod, across a lot of vendors, and some of these are common. So, obviously revenue, training are the base too with everybody, but then I see stuff like, number of deal registrations, number of open opportunities, the marketing one you covered already. The transition to cloud is a big one, and different companies are doing that in different ways. So it might have to be a certain percentage of your revenue has to be coming from cloud. And then for the stuff that comes from cloud, customer adoption is becoming really important, a little bit trickier to measure, but Kate alluded to there, the data is really important that you measure that, because people are rewarding and giving additional discount. And if we go right back to the start of tiering, the reason people tier is because they differentiate, and ultimately the higher the tier, the better discount you get. So let's not forget the root of where all this comes from.
Mm-hmm. And Andy, coming over to you. So a lot of people, if they're in the bigger companies, they're inheriting systems that have been there for a while. Do you evolve? Do you blow it up and start again? What do you do? Because many of those systems have been in place for many years, and they've been tinkered with and played with, and they're now just sitting there. What's next? What do you do?
No, it's a great question. I mean, obviously, a lot of folks have invested a lot of money in their tech stack, right? So if you're really looking at a couple of things through the lens of, first and foremost, what's the partner experience like? And are folks being able to get in and get out in a simple way? And if they are, changing your system probably isn't a big priority. Maybe changing the mechanics of the program to unlock the things that you're really hoping to drive, whether that's helping with like a product launch or driving growth in certain markets. I think oftentimes folks are just looking at the tech and they're not looking at the full program mechanics. You can just step back and really ask, like, your finance department, we wanted to change the tiering and put different money in the market. How do we do that? How do we unwind the money that's flowing today to be able to lean in and do that? So that's a big part of it, the finance part. And then you've got legal. Can you do it? So it's like that preemptive component of that homework or discovery internal before you just lean into the mistake. Our issue here is tech and the way that we're supporting the partner. It could be a lot of other mechanisms. So how do we make that smoother from the program mechanics standpoint? And if tech is the element that needs to be replaced, then absolutely replace your tech. But you need to look at the simplicity all the way from start to finish.
And Kate, you're doing this a lot of the time with your customers. What are the biggest challenges you face, and how do you overcome them?
Yeah, when we think about the biggest challenges, we do run into the partner experience piece first and foremost. Partners have expectations when they're engaging with you, which goes back to something we call the partner value framework. Partners care about their relationship with vendors. You know, is it a good business fit? What's this vendor's reputation? They care about the economics. Can I make money when I'm working with this vendor? What are the ongoing costs? What are the benefits that I'm receiving as a means of engaging with this program? What's overall momentum? Does this vendor have, you know, a good deal of market share? Is there a path forward? Do I have access to tech leadership? So relationship, economics, momentum. So when I think about the challenges when we change any of these pieces, right, there's a potential significant impact to the relationship with that partner, then the economics with that partner. And so addressing those is key, and making sure that, you know, particularly your most strategic partners feel as if they are, you know, having their hands held throughout the entire change process. That's really key.
And Laz, how do you bring those partners into that process?
Well, I think we have to be really wary of disrupting anything that will lessen their engagement, right? So you start changing the program around, give them another reason to spend time with another supplier and what they're doing, you could really be hurting yourself. So I think the engagement is really important, and you know how you ease into this, I think is it's evolutionary. It can't be revolutionary. You can't go into this and just change the rules on a partner, because I mean, you wouldn't want them coming back to you with the same type of response. So I think the key here is, as Andy said, start with the experience. Think about what you want them to do. What behaviors do you want to influence? And then think of your tiering program as a way of getting them there. If you're asking them to do multiple operations across multiple applications in your portal, guess what, right? You're going to see their engagement drop. So keep it simple. Make sure that your goals are well defined, and start with that experience, Andy. I think that's the most important thing.
Absolutely. And I think, Laz, to your point, the aligning on those goals and the outcomes that you want is super critical. And it's very interesting. There's clients that we've engaged with that there doesn't seem to be internal alignment on what outcome they're looking for. So you'll ask, hey, your current vendor, there's low utilization of your program. Do you want 100% utilization? You'll see infighting in the room of, well, wait, no, we're counting on that breakage, so we don't want utilization to be high. So what is the utilization that you want in your program? What outcomes do you want? What behaviors are you trying to mirror? And those are the types of things that you need to really, hone in on before you just make a wholesale change to a program.
Yeah.
And Ken, what do you see? I mean, you've seen this across a number of clients. What are the biggest challenges you see people facing?
Yeah, so it's it's not as hard as, in terms of the technology, it's not as hard as it used to be to bring additional tech. And sometimes people get obsessed with, I have so many providers. It doesn't really matter. What matters is, a lot of what the guy said, you must be easy to do business with, right? Partners work with multiple vendors. They don't exclusively work, or very rarely exclusively work with a vendor. So they do shop around, and it's not always on price and brand. Ease of doing business is it's literally in all the surveys that have been run by the Forresters and the Gartners, it's right up there in the top 3, because time is money, right? So the easier you make it for your partners to work with you, the better chance you have of winning their in business. That's the nub of it, really.
And I'm very aware, and it's lovely. We've got loads and loads of people diving into this in the discussions. I'm picking up on as much of that as I can, and I'll keep doing that. But keep those questions flowing in. Let's have a discussion, not just with the panelists, but with the audience, which is what we're doing at the moment. So that's absolutely brilliant. And Andy, how important are different levels of margin based on margin percentages based on internal, external tiering? A very explicit question came in from Johnny.
Yeah, I think it's critical. I think sometimes when particularly if there's somebody new in the seat who's managing a program that was there existing, I think it's important to take a look at what products and spiffs that you have out there to make sure it's really aligned with what your go forward plan is. We had one client that was putting a lot of dollars behind something that they were literally losing money on, a loss leader. And so it just didn't seem right to have that as part of, an element that you were really incenting your partners to participate in. So really scrutinizing what is best for the organization. Are you leading with your strongest products? Is it about product that you're sunsetting or one that you're just launching? How do you support that? And then your program should really mirror that. And usually margin plays a big part of that.
And margin between tiers, how important is that? I'm a gold and I get X, and I'm a silver and I get Y. Is that still very common, or are you beginning to see that disappear?
No, I think that that's common, but it ultimately feels like, it's not a one size fits all, and there's exceptions in those tierings. And, you have to, I think, use the lens of, are you willing, look at who your key folks are in each of those tiers, and are you willing to have the conversation that they're not eligible for something? Are you going to take something away? So ultimately, really focusing on each of those tiers and who the players are within it to add some kind of complexion to that. Before you do a one size fits all approach.
Okay. And Kate, what are you seeing on that front?
Yeah, really similar to what Andy is saying. There is no one size fits all approach. There's a lot of considerations that you need to make. One of the things that came to mind was the thought about what different margin may mean when we're thinking about transitioning to more of a cloud or SaaS focused world. You're really looking for different, capability sets within your partners when you're starting to talk about interacting with, say, cloud solutions. And so those might be aligned with tiers, and there might be separate considerations from tiers. Am I completely hosting this within my own environment, and then having customers in my own environment or not? How much support am I providing? These are other elements that will change how you should price, and whether or not your margin should be aligned. That may be aligned with tiers, that might not be aligned with tiers.
Mm-hmm. And Ken, one of the things that I get complaints about when I talk to the partners is, vendor X did this and I learned about it after the fact. How important is communication in all of this if you're changing your program? And what are some best practice examples you've seen on that?
Yeah, so, definitely that's kind of, comes back to the being easy to work with. But most vendors that we would work with, they would only change the program rules, once a year is typically the cadence that people do it with. And that's really important. And in terms of the communications, it's really important getting that out in front of the partners with lots of notification, because ultimately those changes directly impact, the partner's revenue stream. And those changes are, things like changing the margins, on the different products. So if it's the cloud, and again, everybody is really migrating to that, they're pushing all of the changes into that area. So I'm going to reward the partner that sells more of my recurring revenue products than the traditional products. And they're significantly rewarding in that area. To the last questions, I was trying to think, I can't think of a use case where the tiers don't have differentiation in the margins, and not just in the margins. If you take the cloud products, the rewards that go with it, so the incentivization for selling those, the products that they're trying to push are very, very significant. They used to be on the traditional products in the single digits. We see them in the first couple of years now moving up into, strong double-digit payouts on that type of stuff. So thus tiering is really, really important, because that's what ultimately the payouts are based on.
Mm-hmm. And Laz, talk to us a bit about communication and the importance of communication with the partners.
Well, no doubt, if your program is undergoing a significant change, whether it's tiering or you're creating specializations within the program, you really have to dial up the two-partner communications. And I think what the partner is expecting for the supplier to be is predictive. They should let them know what they're going to do and what this means to them in the program. And also not forget to tell them what's in it for them. That's something I always see happening. We've got these Camelot-like rules coming from the channel program, and the partners fail to see the value that they'll be getting from this tiering. They could actually be moving into a new geography, a new vertical, something that's going to help them grow, but it's not often shared with them. So I think the two partner communications has to be dialed up if you're going to be changing this around.
Excellent. Okay, building a partner value prop. You're changing the program. You have to communicate it to the partners. What are the sort of things that you need to include in that value prop for those partners?
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to that relationship economics momentum piece, communicating to partners that they matter in the midst of transition, which might mean for your most strategic partners having one-off conversations proactively, multiple conversations in advance of any kind of a launch. For the economics piece of things, partners need to know how to make money. That needs to be clear to them. And so when thinking about introducing potentially increasing complexity, there needs to be tools that will allow a partner to be able to still see precisely how they can make money. No black box where they're uncertain about what their profitability will be. That has to be completely clear, and tools like say partner profitability calculators or deal calculators can really help with that.
And Andy, tracking and measuring, that's really, really important. What are you seeing people doing on that front, and how are they doing it so it's not onerous for the partners?
Well, I mean, you need really clear kind of infographic style reporting that's very, customized at the partner level, so folks can get in, get out, again, back to simplicity and see where they stand at all times. And then you should be, running kind of admin level reporting on the sideline to kind of see how people are progressing. And then kind of back to the communication issue, if you're starting to see a trend that maybe a high performing partner in a particular tier doesn't seem to be, being as effective in the new model, if you've changed your program, giving them an early heads up on ways in which they can navigate the new program in case they didn't understand something or they had a transition on their own side. But usually your top performers stay your top performers. So really understanding how they're, reacting to the reporting that they've gotten or the change, and making sure they're navigating it effectively. So it kind of goes back to communication, like you said earlier.
Mm-hmm. And Ken, one of the biggest comments that a lot of people have is they're seeing more and more influencers involved in the transaction. They're really difficult to deal with. How do you build those into any kind of tiering program?
Yeah, so it's almost back to one of the earlier discussions, like the different partner types. I think there's more discussion about influencers than there actually are influencers, Rod, to be honest. We see some of it, but not as much as people talk about it, to be honest. But yeah, you got to account for it because there are influencers and they have to be rewarded in very different ways. It's not your traditional monetary type reward. There's other rewards we see for influencers, like, attending events, giving speaking spots and so on and so forth, because they want to be rewarded in different ways. Moving away a little bit from influencers, we definitely see more in the referral space. And I think that comes from some of the transitions. Some of the partners, the more traditional partner types, don't always want to go on that cloud journey. So they're kind of more keen to say, well, okay, I'll stick with what I have. I'll refer the business to you, Mr. Vendor. And then the vendor has to deal with it by rewarding that partner with some kind of a referral offering. And they might take that business in-house and go direct, or they might give it to another partner, and obviously then that partner gets treated as part of the ordinary program. So again, these are some of the complexities of the new program types. By having different partner types, they have to be dealt with a lot differently than your traditional resale partner.
Mm-hmm. And you talk about referral partners' earnings. What are you typically seeing there? Is it a percentage of the total? Is it a one and done? Are some people rewarding them over a period of time? How's that working?
Yeah, again, there's very different ones. So they generally go on a scale. Most of the ones that we implement are generally scale based. So they can start off at something like 6% for hello money, if you like, right up to, depending on how involved that particular referral person or partner is involved in the deal, right up to we see them sometimes up to 12 or 15% of the deal. Where partners are a little bit more complicated, where partners decide to do referral business of their install base and they don't do the migration, generally that's a multi-year referral business that they get, and can be quite expensive for the vendor, because they're paying a referral to that partner, not to lose the install base, but they're also paying anything from discount and incentives to the partner that they're giving that business to as well. But it's important because once you get onto the ARR, you don't want to lose that. It's all about customer adoption. So that's really important to vendors.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing on the last conversation, just one thing to add on the communications. I think a huge part of when people change their program is it's generally a smaller group that are very focused on the program change. What I see happening sometimes is even the internal people don't understand the new program. So I would always advise, give plenty of runway, educate your account managers a lot on the new program because they're at the cold phase. They're the ones dealing directly with the partners. And having, the tools and the data insights and those dashboards that Andy alluded to are really important, that the account managers understand the new programs as well, because again, they're the first one that the partner is going to ask, what does this mean to me?
We've been making this argument forever, Ken. I mean, the idea that you can only do one kind of marketing on a platform, I'm sure everyone wants to do demand gen and lead generation, but you know as well as I do that a lot of that two-partner stuff is coming off of a Marketo system or something that the supplier has, and the channel program just has certain access to. So they're not always messaging those partners with the program changes and the things that are happening. And why, someone asks, you need to have something that does the to and through partner marketing and communications. Because just like Andy said, at one moment you want to email them a report that says, hey, here's what's happening in your program, here's where you stand, here's where that last deal put you.
Yeah, and I would say, that's absolutely. And I would say be very visual with it as well. It's harder to be simple. It sounds, a bit silly, but that's the truth of it is you got to keep it really simple so that they can consume it at a glance.
Yeah.
They're not going to dig into spreadsheets because again, remember, they're working with many vendors. They have to understand many programs. So the easier you make it. So if you can show it to them almost like a picture, that's the way to go. It's hard to do, but there are great visualization tools out there that do this stuff today. And again, it's not just for the partner facing, it's equally important for your account managers.
Mm-hmm. And Kate, we're tracking and measuring, but we're tracking and measuring really for two groups. We're tracking and measuring for the partners, and we're tracking and measuring for the internal consumption. What are the things that are most important to both of those groups?
Yeah, I think this discussion, Laz and Ken have already been hitting on this. For external facing folks, for partners, simplicity really is key. It has to be intuitive visuals and well thought through for the user. For internal folks, I think more data is actually something that we always recommend toward, right? So augmenting any kind of basic tier tracking with additional data sources to really truly understand your level of partner engagement, the specific value that they're driving and so forth. So having a very robust internal dashboarding system for folks who are working with partners internally.
And Andy, I'm going to be bringing, probably a number of different technologies to the table. As a partner, I don't care what you bring to the table, so long as it's nice and easy for me to work with those technologies. How do you do that?
Well, training and onboarding is really, really critical to a partner, obviously. I mean, not only do you have to really think of the partner first to make it ease of use, but you need to make sure that, quite frankly, you kind of handhold, and through the whole process of onboarding, or one of your current metrics, if it's an existing program, should be really engagement. And if there is not the engagement where you think it should be from a partner standpoint, what are you doing to really drive that engagement? Are you doing virtual, desktop training? Are you doing webinars? Are you doing in-market? Are you engaging your own field team to really engage your partners? What are the tool sets to really drive engagement and get people using the tech? Because even if it's a great dashboard and you think that your program is really simple, if they're not going to the portal to engage with you, you've got a much bigger problem on your hands.
Mm-hmm. And I've got an interesting question here. How motivational, Ken, is the competitive view amongst the partners? In other words, you're showing your partners, here's what you're doing, here's what the rest of the partner group are doing. How many people are doing that? How effective is it?
Yeah, it's a tricky one, Rod, because it can be demotivational as well. If you show somebody that's down pretty low and there's somebody way, way above them, they almost kind of give up. I'm never going to get there. So what we see some people doing is almost doing grouping. So it's almost like, here's the ones that are close to you, and that creates a lot of competitive wins, if you like. It's like playing sport almost. If you want to play somebody that's slightly better than you to improve, right? So go with that concept and say, that's something we would do with, say, somebody like Cisco, for example, that they don't show everybody top to bottom. They do it in groupings.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And Andy, one of the biggest issues through COVID has been the partners are always very good, typically, at the lovely face-to-face stuff. They did the lunch and learns, they did the breakfast, they did all of that sort of thing. They weren't particularly good. There were some notable exceptions in terms of digital marketing, which of course has become more and more important during COVID. What are the things you've seen people building into their tiering structure to encourage expertise to help partners with digital marketing?
Yeah, no, it's a great question and a big trend. I think that, this whole notion of like this turnkey in market activation is so important. You have such a wide array of partner competency about co-marketing and being able to really market in the field. And I think that was amplified by the pandemic, where you couldn't rely on some of the glad handing in market events that was your way to drive leads in the past. So really understanding digital marketing, creating turnkey packages that are really demand generation as part of even this tiering that might motivate folks to get up to the next tier, to be able to unlock that support, really high touch, almost concierge like ways to co-market, and not being scared to be flexible. So if a partner comes up with a great idea, how do you really build a bespoke program for them to really drive the sector that they're going after, for example? So really listening to your partners, understanding what their need state is. It's not one size fits all for digital marketing, creating that ability to have the bespoke elements, as well as some just off the shelf demand generation campaigns, will really help people navigate the digital marketing push.
Excellent. And Kate, any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, my mind is going not just at the digital marketing benefits, but also what are other things that partners are looking for that can create additional value. Additional access to thought leadership is also something that becomes increasingly important as we think about what are the top value to, say, your top tier partners, right? And so the more access to real thought leaders within your company, exposing partners to some events or things where historically you've only invited your own internal folks, that's increasingly important to partners.
Okay. And Laz, we're almost getting towards the end of the webinar. What are the two or what's the single, for you, most important thing that people should be doing when they're looking at tiering as we move forward?
What'd you ask me, Rod? No, I'll put it, I kind of think Ken started going in this direction, and I think that it's really where this whole tiering thing should go. So first of all, if you're thinking about doing this, you're thinking about tiering and you're asking these questions, the alignment to the business goals is where you should first start. What's the purpose behind all of this? But I would offer an alternative to this. And it goes more to what Ken said around grouping. And, there's two approaches here. One of them is much more supplier driven. I am creating a program with these levels and these segments, and I'm fitting my partners, you, into them, right? The other one is more self-elect. I'm a partner. I'm going through an onboarding process. I complete these steps. I become digital ready. I now am invited to take on some marketing. I then elect to do other things. And this kind of organic self grouping that takes place I think is really important in all of this. And I think you're going to see, we're already there, but platforms like ours being able to support this activity-based grouping and being able to, not have to say, hey, how should I tier my partners to drive more effectiveness? But, what kind of journey can I create for my partners so that they could follow that and start moving, and moving into groups? It's sort of like separating the herd, right? You want that herd to kind of move on its own, but you want to kind of be the catalyst for it. And I think that that's different. I think that people should be looking at that, creating a journey, making it more activity-based and more organic than kind of saying, I'm going to do a silver, gold, bronze, whatever that is, that's out. Now it has to be aligned to the business and it needs to feel good to the partner.
Mm-hmm. Kate, what would your one piece of advice be?
Yeah, I think echoing what Laz is saying, don't try to make tiers do more than they can do, which is a utilitarian value of driving scale and visibility internally. Tiers can't replace that robust data tracking, that activity-based, really understanding how your partner is driving value. And it also can't replace meaningful resources and benefits that help partners address their customer needs, build differentiated IP, reduce customer acquisition costs, drive profitability, these things that partners really care about.
Excellent. And Andy?
Yeah, just further echoing what other folks are saying, I think it all starts with just that, the first step is the analysis and being very real and honest and transparent with where your program is today. What is the data telling you? Do some interviews with some key partners, understanding where the shortfalls are, if there are, maybe a partner survey, understand that data, and then start with internal alignment of, okay, what is it that we're hoping to achieve? Does the program do that today? Make sure you have that alignment. And then a few kind of forecast models of, okay, if we were to change the program in this way, what would that do? And then do we have alignment from legal and from finance? Can we afford to do this? Some of those first few steps before you just kind of go in with this vision of, oh, we're going to make a change without kind of doing that homework first and understanding impact overall. And then, as you do some of those models, pull in some of the key partners to see this is what the results would be and how would you feel about this before you, engage what the sentiment would be before you roll out.
Excellent. And Ken?
Yep. Yeah, so, fundamentally, we have to be able to differentiate our partners. They bring different things to the table. Every business wants to grow the top line. So, that's why they use partners to extend their reach and revenue, if you like, in the first place. So I suppose it's a bit like the guy said, you got to define, what are those KPIs or requirements of the program that align to your business, plug them into, a platform and start to do the modeling. And I would say, and I'm sure everybody here will agree, it's not possible anymore to do this stuff on spreadsheets. You got to have a platform to do the analysis. What does a program change mean? So if I have 1,000 partners or I have 50 partners, if I change the rules of the program, whether it be revenue or number of deal registrations or how much pieces of content did they download, and you crunch those 6 or 8 variables against 5 or 10 partner types, that's a lot of data. Okay, so if you're going to change your program even once a year, you probably need to back up 3 or 4 months, start doing that analysis, and have a tool to do it that presents you the results that says, if I make this rule change, guess what? 50 partners move from gold to silver or silver to gold or whatever it is. What does that then mean to their margin? Because that's what the partners are going to be interested in.
Okay. And we're almost out of time, but I have a final question coming in. Does anyone have a partner survey instrument to share? So what's been effective in surveying partners? Anyone want to jump in on that one?
Well, back in the day, Rod, I wrote a whole piece on partner surveys for success. Don't ask all the questions all at once, right? Keep your surveys focused. There's, one thing I would suggest is, there's a lot of times when you could ask partners questions, and asking those questions, for example, after a training experience to see how they prefer the training to be delivered. Those are, just in time type polling. And I think that, with a lot of tools now, you're able to do that. I think that that's important. So you need to know this, but the questions could be vastly different. If Andy's looking for partners to do digital marketing, then you want a digital readiness assessment, and the kind of questions you want to ask and the person in the partner organization that you want to ask it to are totally different. So, think about it.
Excellent. We're pretty much out of time, so I'd like to say a huge thank you for some great input to Ken Fox, Andy Arnold, Kate Caday, and Laz Gonzalez. Thank you all very, very much for some great insights. We've covered a lot of ground. This webinar has been recorded, so you will be able to look over that. We'll also be going over the questions that everyone raised, and if we did miss any, that's my fault, but these guys have promised to get back to us within 24 hours with the answers, and we will then post them on the site. So if your question hasn't been answered, we will get an answer for you very, very quickly indeed. And as I saw someone popping up there, a very, very happy holidays to everyone. We finished on survey, and one of the things that's very important to us is your impression. So as we close out, you'll be seeing a survey on the webinar. So please do take 2 minutes to complete that survey. And I know everyone's with me when I say, Ken, Andy, Kate, Laz, thank you very, very much indeed. An absolutely wonderful job.
Thank you, Rod.
Thank you.
As always, real honor to be with you guys. Take care.